Good morning. My name is Bruce Baird, and I'm on the board of directors for Unity of Tustin. And it's my pleasure to welcome you here today, all of you that are in person and all of you that are online. Thanks for joining us. This Sunday morning service is special because it's the end of the year. And it's a great time to reflect on all that has been and all that can be in our lives. So please take a moment to silence your cell phones. Today, our program is being presented by Shara, and she has a special guest who is Marcus Kirsch. And Sarah invited Marcus to be with us today to start the new year because he is a noted expert when it comes to working with organizations to solve wicked challenges using principles from his best-selling book, The Wicked Company. We also have Kelly Corsino as our musical guest, and of course accompanied by Carol Roman. Now Kelly is one of our regulars, and we haven't seen her for a while. So Kelly, welcome back. Now, will you please all join in for our opening song?
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of love. I hold you in my heart. You are my family. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God.
Happy New Year, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. It's lovely to see you all. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming for those of you online. What a year, 2023. So moving right along, I am your prayer chaplain. My name is Bonnie Gosline, and it's my honor to light the Christ candle and also to read the daily word for today, December 31st, 2023. So I was thinking about the Christ candle and what that means. So the light of God is within each and every one of us. And so this candle, this flame right now, is a symbol of that, of your own true divinity. The candle is taller than I am, so thank you for your patience. Sunday, December 21st, 2023. Let go and let God is our affirmation. The reading from the scripture, Psalms 4:5. Offer right sacrifices and put your trust in the Lord. Affirmation, with a grateful heart, I bid the year farewell. As the year draws to a close, I reflect on the joyful times, as well as the lower points of the past several months. In a prayerful moment of contemplation, I feel gratitude as I accept all of it. I may have laughed and cried, celebrated and grieved, but I made it. As the days turn to weeks and weeks to months, I have met the year's events with faith and have grown resilient. Now it's time for me to let go as I prepare for the next 12 months. I take the lessons of the past 12 months, their joys, their sorrows, and prepare myself for the new year. I let go and let God. As I spiritually surrender my hopes and dreams and even my fears, I am divinely guided and infinitely blessed. I step boldly and bravely into a new year that is mine to live to the fullest. I'll say the affirmation and then please repeat it with me. With a grateful heart, I bid the year farewell. With a grateful heart, I bid the year farewell. Thank you.
Looks like most of us survived the holidays. I don't know, a couple of you are a little disheveled back there. I love the Ram Dass saying, if you think you're enlightened, go home for a visit. So I'm sure many of you went home or had home come to you, or like me, didn't, and created new norms. But yeah, it's a rich time. There's delights and triggers and joy and predictable constructs that are going to create the family dynamics everyone knows is coming. And I hope you really cherished all of it, kind of like our talk last week about embracing all of it, the broken bones, the overfilled hearts. And I hope you had a wonderful holiday, and you online as well. So here we are on New Year's Eve day. This is a liminal time, right? And we're on that threshold where it's kind of bringing one chapter to a close and another opening. That feels good. Everyone do that. Just closing the one door, opening the other, just kind of bringing that in, that movement, that flow. It almost becomes an infinity symbol. And in that, we have the blessing of culture supporting us in a new beginning. And that's really important because the structures limit our expression much more than I wish they did. So when the cultural structure is in alignment with an opening, or in alignment with novelty, or in alignment with saying yes to something new, let's take advantage of it. And as many of you know, tonight's the burning bowl. How many received your letter from Spirit, your letter from God? A lot of you. Yeah, what was your experience like reading that? Wow. Yeah, did anyone cry? Yeah, anyone laugh? Yeah. I bet the wisdom from your future self, your future wholeness, was on target. I know mine was. For those of you who don't know, tonight we do the burning bowl ceremony where we burn what we want to release, and then we write a letter to ourselves from our future wholeness. And we hold on to those letters, and then we mail them back to you next December. And you get to be delighted, surprised by that relationship. And I really feel we focus a lot on having a relationship with our inner child, and that is very important. But if you're ever really stuck, call on your future self. There's something there. There's that part of us knows how to hold the steady gaze. Yeah. So let's kind of bring that within. I invite everyone to take a deep breath and let it all go. That liminal moment-to-moment breathing, the flow, the in, the out, the allowing. And let's see ourselves right now standing on that threshold, standing in that liminal doorway, and looking back at the blaze of light that was 2023. That blaze of light that was your individual journey. That blaze of light that was the journey of us, this beloved community, aspiring to be an island of sanity and sincerity in our sea of the unknown. And then I invite you to gently turn 180 degrees and see the blank slate of 2024. That canvas of light ready to be painted in a new way. And we affirm that we are not walking blindly or alone into this blank canvas, but we are being gently shaped and guided by the intelligence of our future self, by the intelligence of wholeness, of spirit, of love, of God. And I invite you to see yourself grounded in what you are for, moving forward with your sacred yes. And connected to everyone here. See each other. We're cheering each other on. We're holding each other's hand. We're all walking each other home. So with great gratitude for the power of community, the power of Spirit's loving intelligence, for the power of chapters ending and new beginnings, we say thank you, thank you, thank you, God. Amen. So let's hear a little music about imagining that more beautiful world we all know is possible.
So, before we start this song, this is one that we have all heard many, many, many times. So, you want to try a little experiment with me? Right? Okay, good. Hear it, if you can, for the first time, fresh and new. Really hear the words. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. And no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if we can. No need or greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
So I invite everyone to relax and get ready for some story time. Today we're going to listen to a story of what that imagined world looked like in this one concrete moment. Like a lived impressionistic painting. And how these moments of connectedness can serve as reference points of hope as we make our way. The story I read is from Naomi Shihab Nye. Mentions Albuquerque, so I have a little tribal pride. And it's a lovely example of how we can show up as our collective best. She writes, wandering around the Albuquerque airport terminal, I heard an announcement. If anyone in the vicinity of Gate A4 understands any Arabic, please come to the gate immediately. Well, one pauses these days. Gate A4 was my own gate. I went there. An older woman in full traditional Palestinian embroidered dress, just like my grandma wore, was crumpled to the floor, wailing loudly. Help, said the flight service person. Talk to her. We told her the flight was going to be late, and she did this. I stooped and put my arm around the woman and spoke to her haltingly. Shudoa, shubit ak habiti, stani shwe, min fadlik, shubit siwi. The minute she heard any words she knew, however poorly used, she stopped crying. She thought the flight had been canceled entirely. She needed to be in El Paso for major medical treatment. I said, no, we're fine. You'll get there just later. Who's picking you up? Let's call him. We called her son, and I spoke with him in English. I told him I would stay with his mother, would ride next to her. She talked to him. Then we called her other sons just for the fun of it. Then we called my dad, and he spoke for a while in Arabic and found out, of course, they had 10 shared friends. Then I thought, why not call some Palestinian poets I know and let them chat with her? This all took about 2 hours. She was laughing a lot by then. telling about her life, patting my knee, answering questions. She had pulled a sack of homemade mamoul cookies, little powdered sugar crumbly mounds stuffed with dates and nuts, out of her bag, and was offering them to every woman at the gate. To my amazement, not a single woman declined one. It was like a sacrament. The traveler from Argentina, the mom from California, the lovely woman from Laredo, we were all covered with the same powdered sugar and smiling. There is no better cookie. And then the airline broke out free beverages, and 2 little girls from our flight ran around serving us all apple juice, and they were covered with powdered sugar too. And I noticed my new best friend, by now we were holding hands, had a potted plant poking out of her bag, some medicinal thing with green furry leaves. Such an old country traveling tradition. Always carry a plant. Always stay rooted to somewhere. And I looked around that gate. I looked around and saw the weary ones and thought, this is the world I want to live in. The shared world. Not a single person in that gate, once the crying of confusion stopped, seemed apprehensive about any other person. They took the cookies. I wanted to hug all those other women too. This can still happen anywhere. Not everything is lost. And as we spend some moments in the silence, I invite you to find some reference points of your own through the past year where you experienced the powdered sugar, creating the shared world, the world we all want to live in, that can still happen anywhere, in the silence. And I'll end with this meditation with the last stanza for Nai's poem called Kindness. It goes like this. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the threads of all sorrow and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to gaze at bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, it is I you've been looking for, and then goes with you everywhere, like a shadow or a friend. And we extend this kindness to all of those on our prayer list here at Unity of Tustin, and all of those in our minds and heart, as we are blessed with more music from Kelly and Carol.
Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a spin, traveling in a world of your creation. What we'll see will defy explanation. If you want a view of paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want, do it. You can change the world, there's nothing to it. There is no life I know to compare with pure imagination. Living there, you'll be free if you truly want to be. If you want a view of paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want, do it. You can change the world, there's nothing to it. There is no life I know to compare with pure imagination. Living there, you'll be free if you truly want to be.
Yeah, let's move them in a bit. I think that works. Okay. I thought I would start by introducing you by reading your bio. So you're going to have to tolerate being talked about.
Ruth already made me blush. There's like no pressure at all there.
Okay, let me see. Where are we? So I'd like to introduce everyone to Marcus Kirsch. And Marcus Kirsch is a .com veteran, author, and thought leader for customer experience, innovation, and transformation, and has worked for clients like AstraZeneca, Ernst & Young, Nissan, Procter & Gamble, Kraft, and MIT Europe, to name a few. His work, including his book, The Wicked Company, has won industry and book awards and is used in university curricula and across publications. In the Wicked podcast, he has talked to over 100 global thought leaders, such as Tom Peters, David Marquette, Doug Powell, and Elvin Turner, by reading a book a week for over 2 years, so we don't have to. Thank you for that. And Marcus's work focuses on building teams and cultures that can solve wicked problems, the most complex challenges organizations face today. And we'll be talking about, I've already gotten some feedback that you didn't like me wishing you a wicked new year. So we'll be exploring what we mean by that. In his off time, Marcus is a mediocre indoor climber, movie nerd, and ceramicist. So welcome, Marcus, to Unity of Tustin. Have you ever talked at a spiritual community before?
I have not.
You have not. Well, you know, I know in your book you're very much an advocate of cross-disciplinary skills. So I'm so glad that now you can say you've worked with everything from multinationals to churches.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was one of the reasons that I was excited that you were in town. Marcus is visiting from London and agreed to come and speak with us because a lot of the challenges we face as a movement, as a unity movement, are really echoed in your book. And these are the same challenges that multinationals are facing, that different companies are facing on a global level. And I thought it would be good for us to see how we're kind of part of a zeitgeist. We're part of a cultural shift. And that can expand our view on what kind of mindset we need to develop to meet the challenges that are coming to us. So I wanted to start by saying something in your introduction. And sometimes if I talk to people, I'll reference the introduction because I didn't read the whole book.
Yeah.
But I actually read the whole book. But you
Thank you very
say, it's very good. It's very good. If you ever ask yourself why your company is struggling in today's world, you're probably using tame company aspects to solve wicked problems. And spiritual communities in general, we're struggling. So I have a feeling we're probably using tame aspects to solve wicked problems. So could you describe what wicked problems are and why we should care about it?
Yeah. So, trying to be concise, and apologies if I ramble on a bit at times. I'm better when I write things down. However, tame wicked problems. So, you can imagine tame as also linear problems in a way where you
Tony,
can.
could you up Marcus's
loud
mic
enough?
a bit? Oh, maybe could you project a bit more?
I will try.
Okay.
I'm not a trained actor, but here I go. Tame you can also call linear problems, and essentially there are problems that you look at and you can gather enough information to understand it well enough in order to come up with a solution. And that solution will then work in this context. It will work in a similar problem context, so you can take it out of one and put it into another. Good example is building a bridge or building an airplane. It's quite complex, however, if you build a plane properly, it will always fly. If you build a bridge, you will always cross 2 points and people can drive over it and walk over it and so on. And you can put a bridge here next door, or you can put it somewhere over to Japan or Europe, wherever. It will still work as a bridge because the solution is sort of, the problem doesn't change based on the context very much. Yeah? It also gets easily to, there's a right and a wrong way to build a bridge, because if it falls down, it's the wrong way. If it holds for a long time, it's the right way. Wicked problems are different. They have different characteristics. Wicked problems function in a way where they're often so complex and they keep changing while you're looking at them and trying to understand them, that it will never quite stop. You will never quite be able to contain it enough in a lab-like scenario to replicate it, because it has these different dynamics. The other thing is also that even if you introduce a solution to it where you think, okay, this solution will make the thing a bit better rather than worse, it will adopt to it. Very good examples are things like poverty, crime, those kind of things. Epidemics are another good example. And they often exist in an area where you have people involved, because people have these dynamics where they look at things, then they make up their own mind towards things, and then they adopt and react to it very differently. And we're all unique, so we all react a bit differently to these things, which means a solution can often be outdated in a couple of months because people have learned around it, either work their way around it or adopt to it and then start differently behave around it, and therefore yet again you want to upgrade it, you want to shift it, you want to try something else to further improve it. So where tame problems have sort of a right or wrong that works in different contexts, wicked problems are continuously evolving, and you can't just put one solution into another context and you get the same output. It just doesn't work. And the main reason is the more you have people involved, the more that works. So the things you can put in a lab scenario, a very engineering or science level approach to it, you can replicate. That's a tame problem. But most of our problems seem to be wicked problems. And I think that's why wicked problems are important, to know what they are, and that you need different ways to go about your solutions.
Yeah, like why does it matter, and what
kind of problem.
What do we need to cultivate to meet these challenges that we may not think of because we're used to having a mindset to challenge to meet tame problems. So what are the implications?
So the implications are often how you approach it and what the risk is to getting it wrong. For a lot of the corporate or company backdrops I worked in, you have a lot of industrial revolution factory thinking that still exists today in a lot of companies, and they're structured around that. You know, the way managers sit, the way the factory floor is organized, and all of this is based on linear problems, because they're saying, we know how this works, we know how to produce another 1,000 of those. We therefore just focus on optimizing the process. We just make it faster, cheaper, and so on. The problem with the wicked problem is if you do that, you just often in the beginning think you understand the problem, but by the time you're putting the solution into place, the wicked problem has evolved, and your risk of getting it wrong is way, way higher. And I see that a lot with, in particular, what's called change and transformation projects in companies, which are often based around creating new ways of working, behaving around understanding a problem and finding solution and testing them. What companies do a lot is to think in the beginning they know everything enough, and then they just go and execute. And it's called waterfall approach. And it's sort of you start one, and then the next one, and then the next one. And you can never quite go back. That's not how the budget works, not how timelines work. It's not how the expectation of organizations in that sense work. If you go into the wicked area, you do a lot of testing all along the way. You test either every 2 weeks or every quarter or something like that, and you revisit based on the fact, has anything changed actually? Are we still happy with where this is going? Is the context shifting while we're looking at it? Have we unearthed new stuff that we didn't know last week? And it makes you much more nimble. It makes you better to react to things like epidemics or unforeseen things. And they happen a lot when you have a bunch of people in one place. It's just always people come and go. It's a very simple example of things changing, but also people growing, people being in different mindsets that there were last year, and things keep changing. We all know that. It's just not very often recognized in traditional classic sort of approaches to how organizations shape, how they do things, how they communicate, and so on. So knowing about this wicked thing helps a bit to say, look, let's do a lot of more smaller things. Let's test back with reality a bit more, because we know it changes. Let's not say it doesn't. let's not say there is just one way. There are multiple different ways, and depending where we are and when we are, these have different relevancies. And yeah.
So I'll tell you how I see this applying to us. For one, I think what we offer is pretty fabulous. But Marcus writes in his book, "Have a great product and they will come," has never been a better guarantee of failure. And, our movement, our unity movement, we used to have 1,000 spiritual communities. Now we have 600. I think we do have a great product, but it seems like our delivery system isn't quite in sync with evolving cultural norms. And what I hear you saying about wicked problems, it seems to be like there's no roadmap. So that means there's no answer. That was the Alban Institute used to consult with churches like ours, and they went out of business 10 years ago because their consulting practices were no longer working. And one of their consultants went on to write the book, "How Do You Lead When You Don't Know Where You're Going?" And we actually studied that when I first came on. So it's like a shift. It's a shift from going to like algorithms, try this will work, which used to work. And now we're in new territory where we can't even find consultants because the consultants don't have the roadmap either. And I get the feeling, it means that as a community like ours or as a corporation, we have to get comfortable with the unknown. We have to get comfortable with trying new things, which means we got to get comfortable with failing, and failing fast and failing forward. And how do you normalize that mindset change?
Well,
softball.
How many ways are there to skin a cat, I guess? So for the cruel image. It's a saying, I think a British one. There's a lot of ways to go around it, given who you're talking to and where people are. In my job, often you start with something called a maturity assessment. See actually where are people.
One moment. Is everyone understanding, Marcus? No.
Oh.
Okay.
Sorry.
So we need more volume and maybe a little slower. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll
Yeah.
be more thoughtful. No worries. This is great.
Yeah.
Is it a bit closer? Yeah. He said that was gonna brush my grayish beard there. Is that? So he's not screaming. That's good. So,
Okay.
So.
There. Nice.
Yes.
Yay.
Oh. Now I'm coming to myself. That's great. So. Maturity assessment is what you usually do to understand what the context of a community is, to see where's the mindset actually, how welcoming are certain things, what's the language used for certain things to describe situations, problems, and so on. Other aspects are also to look at things like psychological safety, which means how willing and open is anyone to actually speak out towards a problem, because what I found often is you go to a place, people know about the problems, but sometimes in the particular areas of the hierarchy with managers or middle management, something like that, they're not always that aware. They hear about it in different ways. Sometimes these things get filtered, and before you know it, they actually don't understand these things well enough. So to normalize change, I would say, I like to go to places and say, look, do you really think you're actually not changing? You're actually probably changing every day. We're just not used to it anymore to notice it, because it's a little bit every day. It's unnoticeable. But I'm pretty sure between now and 3 months, you'll probably look at certain things and say, I'm doing this a bit different, and I feel better or worse about it, and therefore I want to maybe nudge that yet again or do something about it or not. And sometimes it takes a while for us to do that, and sometimes not. At times like these, around the turn of one year into another, there's all these statistics about gym memberships in January spiking, and after that they drop off very quickly, and that's to no one's surprise.
I have an idea, if I can interject. Those of you who want to give up sugar for the new year, based on Nai's story that I read, I say eat as much sugar as you want, just do it with somebody. Have that be the turnaround. You know,
That's brave. Yeah.
as long as you eat your sugar with someone. But
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah.
Continue.
So you have that, and you have the other example. So I have a daughter, and she's 10 now. So I think everyone who has kids notices that even more. Not maybe on yourself, but on the children, of course, because they grow up so quickly, especially when they're young. They change incredibly a lot. But we change around this too, right? So when you become a parent, you just learn and you have to be on your toes every day, because those kids learn really quickly how to run circles around you, right? So you have to adopt all the time. And I think we do the same even in the most typical office job. We'll do that. We'll talk to some people different than we have talked to them a couple of months ago. We'll have different conversations with our boss. We have a couple of new starters. Some people are leaving. If I sometimes look at that, it's like change is already every day, all the time. And that helps often normalize, to help understand people that, oh, I'm actually doing that already. It's like, yes, and what we are proposing, what maybe someone else wants to do in a bigger sense, is not that much more scary. So it's often about this fear of the unknown in the future. It's like, if we change things, what does it mean to me? What does it do to my purpose, to my everyday tasks, to my sense of belonging, and all these other aspects? And I think starting with someone's story and saying, look at those aspects of your life. Aren't you already a change agent to some level in a lot of aspects already? And that often helps to sort of break down the uncertainty a bit, to make it more tangible of what this means and what it is. And also to relate a bit more between, you know, this big unknown and what might be and where you are today.
In our movement, you know, I think we did have an algorithm that worked. Our foundational teachings were really bringing our relationship to God from being dogma and external to internal and direct, and it spoke to a lot of people, and a lot of people moved into our movement. Even the mediocre ministers had churches without enough seats. But there's been a shift. There's been a shift where our foundational teachings really haven't kept up with our movement. And what's ironic is our movement, the foundational teachings, are about evolution. But rather than prioritizing being traditional by evolving, we became traditional by centering the teachings that are now 100 years old. So we're kind of moving past that. We have a little bit of evolutionary stress and motivation to do so. But I'm curious about, like, that, again, that mindset shift of going from having something that worked, it stopped working. And this is what I've heard in the community. I've heard a lot of people say, that church started to get small when they stopped teaching metaphysics. You know, where it's always about trying to find the reason and that the person is responsible, and if we just got a better minister, everything would come back to where it was. But what I hear you're saying, it transcends individual effectiveness, that we're actually talking about changes that are a byproduct of culture, and that it requires like a systemic infrastructure change in how we do spiritual community, not just moving around people. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. The interesting aspect there is to, again, where I see a lot of these overlaps between a community like this and all the way to, let's say, a manufacturing business, which is probably the least community-driven one, because it produces products, tries to do 1,000 million however they do, and it's just replicating things, right? And they go like, oh, we have something that... Oh, we have something that works. I think the interesting aspect is there when you realize that, and I've seen this a lot in companies across every industry, there's no one immune to this, is that when you see that something stops working, often organizations stop at reading just the symptoms instead of actually seeing where the real source for the problem comes from. And often in my area of my main area that I'm working in terms of customer experience, is often sort of the customer behavior that has changed. To give you one example, that it was very uncommon over in the UK for people to order their groceries from a company and then a truck comes around, that's it. But since COVID, it got incredibly popular for obvious reasons. And since then, that has maintained. Very few people went back to not ordering their groceries like that from the services available. So that has permanently shifted. And I think when you see that, you need to notice that. And you can only notice that when you go, well, let's go back to the people we should be reaching and see how they started thinking differently about this. I had similar experience with, especially, which is why I love research, to talk to people, to interviews. Automotive, so when I was doing a project for Nissan a couple of years back, they were looking at electric bikes as well for transport. They weren't just looking at four wheels anymore. They realized there's a lot of need for that in different markets. And they said, well, what can we do? What is this? And I said, well, look back at why people needed the cars in the first place, or why this is shifting. And one of the things they found is also with younger people, it's not just about the car and not. The mobile phone had replaced the status symbol of the car as a symbol for freedom for young people. So back in the days when everything you wanted as a teenager was quick to get to a driving license so you can drive your friends around and go places, it's not the major piece to have anymore. It's all, how do you connect to your friends now? Not through a car ride, through social media. So the phone has become the thing to buy when you're young rather than the car. So therefore the car ownership is not that big a deal anymore, and that's why some of these other transport aspects have come to flourish. So going back to the needs and see how the behavioral needs have shifted, that tends to give you better answers to those kind of new questions.
Kind of the what correlates to that in terms of solutions. You talk in your book a lot about moving from vertical organization and silos to horizontal organizations and cross-disciplinary skills and teams. Can you talk a little about that and why that's important and why we would want to go from silos to cross-disciplinary, vertical to horizontal? And for example, for us, that would be an example of the why behind moving to spirit groups. We're moving to spirit groups rather than being the receiver of information from a minister or a traveling spiritual teacher. It's about trying to create transformational spaces for the community, by the community, when we're all empowered to be the transformational agents for each other. But, that's a big shift. And some people are like, well, I don't wanna, I missed when we would get all of the spiritual teachers on the book tour routes, and I wanna go back to that time. But that's a technology, in a sense, writing a book and going to all the different places and giving workshops that doesn't exist anymore. So in a way, we're trying that. We're really trying to move from being minister-centric to mission, evolutionary, purpose-centric, where we have more participatory spirituality and engagement. And a lot of our personal development is as a result of our taking on leadership within the community. But that's new. And it seems to echo what you talk about between silos and horizontal teams. So can you riff on that a little?
Yeah, there's a lot in there, probably 2-3 things. So one is that cross-disciplinary teams essentially means you have not just people from one particular mindset or practice in the team, you have variety. Depending on the project you're working on, that means, for example, you want to have people involved that actually know exactly the target audience pretty well, maybe are members of the target audience that you want to help. And then other people who might know more about the processes, certain technologies, or particular ways to manifest something. And then you have your organizational ambition of, well, we're doing this because, and these are sort of our targets, this is the place we'd like to be at. And if you have sort of a mix of those people, that usually leads to better results, because you can most easily tackle complexity by looking at it. If something has a lot of facets, you want to look at it from all sides. That's a simple metaphor. And so you want to have a lot of voices on the table that are different and not similar. Because then you have more likely the moment where someone says, but what about this? You can actually not do that, or you don't want to do that. To give you an example, just on the way here in the car, we had a conversation with workshops in India and learning that, well, in India you don't step at things that you see of value. And when a team was there to do a workshop, they put some paper or something on the floor and asked people to stand on it. And people were like, oh, we can't do that. That's not what we do. And it was a surprise, and so the activity needed to be a bit amended, which was totally fine. But it's just one of these things where what people put value on, how they behave, how they react. You know, if someone would have been in the team like that to point it out before, it would have even not happened. Because you don't have that insight, you don't have that viewpoint, you don't see what the need is, you don't see maybe not what the fear behind it is. So, and Google and other companies have done research on this and proven that the best teams are not the ones with the highest paid specialists, they're the ones with a multitude of voices that come from different directions and they're all allowed to speak and to be listened to. That de-risks any solution and always bears better results.
Yeah, and I found that fascinating, that evolution and moving a field forward isn't coming from the geniuses at the top, but they're really coming from the creative output of the team, and that actually investing or centering individual specialty almost creates irrelevant new arisings. You talk about like the dissertation on the use of comma in Shakespeare. Like that would get someone tenure, but it doesn't improve our lives at all. So there's a need to move away from specialists, which is interesting because, you know, this community was a part of that circuit where all of the specialist teachers were would travel. And now not only is that model not happening, but there's actually not a new generation of spiritual teachers emerging that everyone knows the way we all know Eckhart Tolle. So that's not even happening. It's almost the extinction of the guru, whether it's technology or spirituality. So that's happening, but you're also finding it's not even effective to center individual genius. It's better to be good at many things and get those people together and then let that alchemical vessel.
So it's an interesting thing to contemplate when you look, in particular when you talk about communities and movement often have a tendency to share around singular individuals, right? So leaders, the face of X, these kind of things. And that works well because it's part of how communication works. And that is, you want to have a certain level of clarity there. You want to have something that's relatable. And a single person can often represent that when you're lucky. So, well, sometimes to the benefit, sometimes to the detriment of things. So it can work really well because an individual person brings the clarity. There's one particular narrative that everyone can surround themselves.
Brings coherence.
Exactly. And I think clarity is often really important when you do change and transformation because of the uncertainty. Uncertainty is negative and it makes us uncomfortable and want to avoid it. Clarity is like, great, I know it. Now I can buy into it, right? It's always the biggest challenge in these projects and in general. So you said something earlier about what was the beginning of the question again you had there? You talked about individuals, decentralization. So decentralization, so think about that. I don't know if it's part because of the digital things in our lives that weren't there a good 20-something, 30 years ago or more. If that enabled us to be actually a bit more like nature, right? Nature does variants and tries different things all the time. Every time a new generation gets born, you know, they try. It's no perfect copy. There's a reason it's not a perfect copy because it will always try a little bit on the fringes, bits and pieces, that then is successful or not. And I think that's how systems stay healthy and progress and grow. That there's always parts in it that can try things a lot, bring variance to it. Because the outside world does that anyway and will throw more variance at us. And if you don't have a couple of variants to throw back at it, then it will run us over.
And we are trying a lot of new things. And I want to say Marcus has agreed to stay and do a question-answer period after fellowship. So any questions you have or insights you have, hold on to them, because we'll create a circle in here and continue the conversation. But, in order to adapt, we're trying new things. We just created a not-for-profit organization for our gardens, which is a community resource, so we can apply for grants that otherwise would not fund a spiritual community. We are looking at getting our education building ready to rent out as a preschool so we can have recurring revenue. And these are, mission adjacent things. So there is some leakage there.
Yeah.
But it's part of wanting to be resilient for the future. And then there are things we are doing, like we do have a program in our movement that's giving grants for spiritual communities to prototype.
Right, yeah.
So we received a grant to prototype a new form of embodied prayer, in a sense, where we get together as a collective. We're really moving into we space, accessing different parts of our knowing, very somatic, very creative, very heart-based and mind-based. And then we're learning how to speak from the source point of the present moment itself. So really getting comfortable with the unknown so that we speak from what we don't know, not from our nice little sound bites. And we kind of support each other's golden shadow in these collectives. So that's something that we're trying as well. All these things are brand new. And they might fail. We might invest money in upgrading our education building and we don't get a change use permit for preschool. So how do we tolerate the risk and the unknown and the...
I mean, how do you tolerate life?
Yes, yes.
I think that's my answer. Like it's the variant thing is often the idea is you try a lot of small things, right, rather than a lot of big things, because no one can do that. And even just what you said, you're trying a lot of things more than some of my clients I'm working with, so you're way ahead of those in terms of making an effort and trying things. I think just one maybe interesting story I had about, so Nationwide is a building society over in the UK. So they help people get on the housing ladder, and they have a really beautiful origin story where in one of the small towns where they started in the UK, it was a bunch of people going to a pub, meeting there every week, and they by themselves couldn't afford to raise enough money for a house. So they got together, pooled their money together, and were able to afford the first house together. And that's where the company grew from that idea, a bunch of guys, people, friends, in a small town helping each other out. It's beautiful, it's great, and it has an amazing, strong brand in the UK. There's a lot of people really trusting it. It's one of these very wholesome, great brands of the UK. They're struggling with digital. Their idea is then to go and say, well, let's have people open up bank accounts faster. So we want to be more like Monzo, like these young people who do all this stuff. And when I worked with them, I looked at it and I said, why are you doing that? You have one of the most beautiful origin stories that's there that people trust with it. Why don't you keep doing that? Just in a digital sense. So keep helping people get to the mortgage. The bank account, having it or not, might not be any point in this. That's not a considered value. And when we did research, it's exactly what people said. But how can you, in harder times, help them save better, that they actually get to the mortgage quicker? Which also helps the business, because the business makes no money on the savings accounts, on the mortgages, is how they function better. They're not a normal bank, they're a very community-driven bank. So it works differently. So it helps them, and it helps people. And they didn't really consider that. For them, it was all about tech and speed and that. It's like, hang on a second. What you always want to do is stay to your principles and your core essence of why you exist. If you stay with that and look from that perspective onto new things, you're probably not going to go wrong, because you're enabling, emphasizing, and growing your original mission. You stay true to it, and it's less likely you might deviate and blur things and go a bit too far out potentially, which is possible.
And
But,
how do you speak to the fear aspect? How do you speak to the fear aspect of like clinging to organizational survival?
Yeah. Trust building. Where the trust is coming from is usually through working with people. So the more time you get with them, then you can build trust. And trust then, in my experience, works. What I hear people tell me is that you go in somewhere, everyone gives you benefit of the doubt, at least for a while. Different people give you a different amount of time. Some people give you 2 weeks, others give you a year, if you're lucky. Rare, but happens. And then within that initial time, that is just pure trust, you actually learn a bit about them, and you try to do something that is an action that leads to some result where people can see, oh, it can actually make a difference. And it doesn't have to be big. It can be as small as just to prove a point sometimes and go, look, there's a there, right? And then build it up from there. So that is the second trust builder. Because if that doesn't happen, then you're quickly out of the door again.
I have a sense of what we might be weak on. Developing the capacity to tolerate change, normalizing the unknown. I mean, these are actually spiritual capacities. They're the capacity to have to hold on to something other than an external reference point. And I think we do that well. When I read your book, you talk about, iterating and then getting feedback, really quick feedback, incorporating that feedback, and then letting that influence the new path forward. I don't know if we have very strong mechanisms of how we get feedback, of like how are spirit groups working, how is it moving from minister centricity to mission centricity, how is it focusing on shadow work, and how is that. So there are some things we do transformational stories to really kind of get that aspect as a qualitative measure. We do see an outpicturing of a lot more harmony these days, and it's hard to say that shadow work equals more trust and more harmony, but something is happening in that direction. But yet we don't have very much quantitative, which is hard to quantitatively measure something qualitative, but or even these like surveys, or is it conversations, or what does qualitative feedback look like? How formal does it need to be, and what might a community like ours do?
I think, first, it should always be a mix of quantitative and qualitative, right? But I think in particular a community like yours that's even more focused on people and people work, it's a lot. Storytelling helps a lot. So sometimes people say, oh yeah, communication is that. Like, no, actually there's a difference at least in my opinion, between communicating and storytelling. Storytelling has a different angle to it. It works better on a relatable basis. Communication is often, I'm still just talking at you, which doesn't always work, or rarely does, unless there's an open door on the other side. I think that kind of, and by storytelling, so celebrate every little success, share it so that everyone has heard of it, but as much as the things that go wrong, right? So there's an interesting, I think over the years here and there were some interesting websites of, what was it, like art project applications that all went wrong from really famous artists that weren't accepted. And it was nice to read those as well, to go like, okay, what makes a difference between success and not? But also knowing that even the people we think are generally very successful, they fail all the time just as well. And I think it's good to know that. The other thing we did when we talk about communication storytelling, so in the corporate level, I made a habit out of looking at both things. One is, okay, here's the job, here's the thing we're trying to go towards. That's sort of our direction. How are we getting on with things? Do we have everything we need? And do we get enough help? That's one thing. But the second thing that really helped, in particular towards or against burnout, and some of these companies, the projects are involved, 12, 14-hour days for months on end. Can be very taxing, especially on people who come together new as a team, which happens very often, so we don't know each other that well. So there's all of that missing sometimes. To actually make time and say, okay, apart from your activities this week, tell me about anything, how you're feeling. Are you overwhelmed? Do you need time out? Do you need anything else? And it doesn't have to be task-oriented. It's really just about, where are you? Do you think you're making progress? Do you think you're going to be as happy to go into the next week as you are now? And that helped a lot in some of the projects I was in, where we had not just stress at work, but people who had personal things happening. In one example, one guy's best friend died, and so we had to have a chat with him. It's like, you want to take a few weeks out, whatever. And he said, no, can I just keep working? Because it will help me refocus on the work and get me through it. So, and we caught up with him every 2 days just to see if he's still okay. And he just soldiered through. And it's that kind of aspect of the conversation, I think, that in particular in communities is often when the mission or the goal is too much communicated, those stories are often missing. And I think that makes us often feel unrelatable to a direction, because if everything's so fine and great and positive, then I'm negative. I shouldn't bring myself into that space because I don't fit into this positive.
So storytelling helps create coherence, but the storytelling should be very real. It should be about the struggles
I think it's the
as well as the
honest
successes.
aspect of it. It's like, look, not everything's rosy. When we fail, how do we fail? We can fail on many different levels, and they're all human, and they all should be acceptable in a group. I think I never worked better with people when it was really like that. We would talk about everything. We would bring a bit of personal life into it to a level and say, look, just having this one next 2 weeks. And as long as everyone's aware, you suddenly have these beautiful behaviors that go where someone else taps someone on the shoulders, like, how are you doing, And that makes it quite scalable. Because you can't just have a transformation team of 10 people trying to take care of like 1,000 people. It just doesn't work. You need to decentralize these things, and I think you do it through storytelling, that actually we know more about each other. We know who they are. And then you'll see these kind of horizontal rather than vertical connections and tribes and groups and people who help each other come up. And that usually builds the best communities. It's a sort of then a self-healing, self-learning kind of culture, and that's what everyone wants. Yeah.
Thank you, Marcus.
Welcome.
I think that's a lovely, lovely place to end this conversation with, and then we can continue it after fellowship. And I almost want to even ask, do you have any questions? How many people do have questions? Okay, good. So we'll have a lovely, lovely conversation later. Not now, Arlene. But you'll get a chance. I'm just glad that there's engagement. Was this helpful to everyone? Yeah, thank you. Wonderful. Okay, so onward. Thanks, Marcus.
Oh, thank you. Let's have another rousing hand for both Shara and for Marcus. Thank you so very much for coming and visiting with us today. We'd like to welcome our first-time guests in person and online. Hi, online. We're so grateful that you joined us here today. Here at Unity of Tustin, we believe in many paths, one God, and our mission is to transform lives and inspire people to make a positive difference in the world. We are a community of all walks of life, and would like you to know that whatever your background, gender identity, wherever you are on your spiritual path, we're glad that you're here to continue with us and share that with us. And now I invite the ushers to please come forward with a flower and an information card if you are here for the first time, or maybe the second time or third time and you didn't raise your hand. That's what I did. Please do so now so we can recognize you with a flower and a gift card. Anyone here for the first time? Oh, we have one. We have two. Oh, thank you. We like that. We have one more here. Yes, okay. Welcome. So now we recognize it's our time for a love offering as we share our financial gifts with our ministry. There are various electronic ways to give, and they're listed on a card in the seat back in front of you. And in the weekly e-newsletter bulletin, we also pass an offering bag if you're giving in cash or check. And even if you are electronic, please, we invite you to put your hand over that bag and take a moment to consider the prosperity of the world and how you are participating in that. We are grateful for your faith and generosity. So I invite Reverend Shara to come back to the podium and give us our offering message.
Well, here at the end of the year, the end of 2023, I think the biggest message is one of gratitude. Our community is so generous with time, talent, treasure, love, beingness, connection, willingness, your yeses, and it's really been extraordinary. So I just really want to thank everyone for your dedicated and continued generosity. There's been also a lot of really inspiring and meaningful end-of-year gifts. And thank you for including Unity of Tustin on your Christmas list and giving us Christmas presents as well. And the last day of the year, just logistically, if you did want your contribution to be tax deductible for 2023, today and tonight it still will be. So note to selves. But great gratitude for all of the joy and generosity that we share and how we are able to stay resilient even in these times of change and maybe just be the birthplace of where spiritual community is going. Oh, great gratitude. So please join me in our love offering blessing together. Divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive in joy. And let us receive some more beautiful blessings from Kelly and Carol.
Thank you. All right. There's a new world coming, and it's just around the bend. There's a new world coming, this one's coming to an end. There's a new voice calling, you can hear it if you try, and it's growing stronger with each day that passes by. There's a brand new morning, rising clear and sweet and free. There's a new day dawning that belongs to you and me. Yes, a new world's coming, the one we've had visions of, and it's coming in peace, and coming in joy, coming in love. You all know this, right? This is like Mama Cass. Come on. If you're feeling it. Yes, a new world's coming, the one we've had visions of, coming in peace, coming in joy, coming in love. You sing it? Coming in love. Can I hear you? Coming in love. One more time, come on. Coming in love. Last time, coming in love. All right.
12:45. Okay. Thank you so much, Kelly and Carol. That was really great. Oh, we're in the countdown now, that's for sure. So a few announcements as we get up and get out of here. Next Sunday is Whitestone Sunday. For those of you who look forward to this service as a way to welcome in the new year with your word from Spirit. On January 14th will be our next community orientation for those who wish to learn more about the Unity movement and membership. And for those who have asked, sorry, this writing is really small, and today I decided, no, I'm not going to rewrite my announcements. I'm just going to literally cut and paste, and I'm paying the price now, so sorry. Or you are, actually. I'm fine. It doesn't matter. Oh, dear. And for those who have asked for more information about the Unity movement, Reverend Shara will be offering a class after the February 4th service on all things unity and affirmative prayer. So put that in your calendar for February 4th. Reverend Blair is offering a grief workshop beginning January 18th. More information is at the welcome table. And finally, tonight is our annual Burning Bowl New Year's Eve service, where we realize and release all that we want to leave behind from 2023, and then write letters to God stating our intention for 2024. And the salon, impromptu salon this afternoon will start at 12:45, so grab something at hospitality and come on back with your questions and answers. We are a 7-day-a-week ministry, and there is always so much happening here at our campus of consciousness. Please make sure to try. I have to slow down. One moment. Please make sure to check each Friday for our weekly e-newsletter and visit the welcome table, which is just right out the doors and yes, this one, right, to your right, for more information with the various upcoming and ongoing classes, events, and opportunities for involvement in our beloved community, ever-growing, of Unity of Tustin. Please join us after service as we connect for food and fellowship around the hospitality table. The bookstore is open. We have Reiki practitioners. They're wearing the green ribbons. Prayer chapels like myself wear a white ribbon, and we will be at the front of the garden to hold all your prayers in confidentiality. Please stand and join me for the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Go forth and live it. The last day of 2023. Thank you.